But how are you feeling? How are your nerves holding up, Sim?
Yeah, if you asked me 10 days ago, am I looking forward to this fixture? And I would have told you, I couldn't be further away from looking forward to this kind of fixture. After conceding,
and now you're even further away from that.
But we'd conceded the first goal 10 games in a row. We weren't playing well at all. There were question marks about Conte. I mean, obviously there's still question marks about all of that. But after that win, since we got that win against Palace, it was really important to break that duck before the North London derby. Finally get a game where we are the ones scoring the first goal rather than vice versa, rather than always starting slow. And obviously it was a very big win. They followed up with a game through to the next round of the FA Cup. And now we've had a week preparation. We're getting key players back. Kulusevski, hopefully Bentancur back in the team. Maybe Richarlison potentially on the bench. We'll have to wait and see. It's given me a bit more belief that at home in a North London derby, in a game we haven't lost since 2014, a league game anyway, at home to Arsenal. It has given me a bit of belief that we can put a bit of a spanner in the works for their title charge on Sunday. I think when it comes to tactically how we're set up and how we're going to be, how we're lined up against Arsenal, I think how the two teams play against each other, we're kind of, in a sense, when we're at our best anyway, well suited to combating a team like Arsenal. We showed last season we played Man City at the Etihad that this kind of way of playing can be very effective against teams who leave lots of spaces in behind and come at you and who are going to kind of flood players forward and be kind of open to a counter-attack. I know Arsenal have, players like Saliba and Gabriel, very quick defenders. But I really believe with Kulusevski's back in the team, it really improves our chances of getting a result tenfold in this kind of game. If you even look back to the game of the Emirates, where we lost 3-1 early in the season, where, we deservedly lost. But if Kulusevski played that game, considering the chances and the decision-making that let us down at crucial periods, and especially in the first half.
Like that whole first half, yeah.
Like, we could have easily got more than a goal in that first half and could have gone in leading, and it could have been a very, very different game. And now having him back, it could. I'm hoping maybe it could lead to a change in fortunes for us.
Yeah, I really hope so. And Kulusevski, and not only Kulusevski, but Bentancur can be a massive plus for us in this game. I worry for our midfield if Bentancur isn't playing, to be fair. But let's talk about Kulusevski and Bentancur for a second, because if Kulusevski isn't playing, do you think our best port of call is the 3-5-2 formation? Because I feel like maybe flooding that midfield with three combative players might be the way to go for us, where we can sit in that low block, just soak up, absorb that pressure and spring on them and have Kane and Son up there and hurt them like they usually do.
I'll probably say yes, because if we don't play the 3-4-3, what we have to acknowledge is it's a formation which you're kind of giving up control in a way in midfield. That's the drawback to this formation. But on the flip side, when we do have our moments to progress the ball very quickly into the front line, if we can get it into the front line quick enough on the ball, then they can be devastating if given space. With that three lining up. Now, if we take Kulusevski out of that, obviously Bryan Hill's done well, but I don't know if having Bryan Hill is worth giving up the control in midfield for. Whereas Kulusevski you might think he outweighs it. That would be the benefit of having him. So I think I would go to a 3-5-2 if Kulusevski is out. However, big question marks will be in the wide positions if we do go in that formation, because first of all, it puts a bit more pressure on one of the midfielders to be a bit more attacking and go on a regular basis, not just making late runs in the box like Højbjerg does, like proper being like an attacking player. And second of all, puts more pressure on the wide players to dominate their wide areas even more, potentially, than in a 3-4-3. And I don't know, especially Doherty anyway. I mean, I've got reservations about Perisic in this role, but especially someone like Doherty who needs support around him. If you isolate him like you do in a 3-5-2, how effective he would be, and how pen back he would be, and how if he would struggle with dealing with someone like Martinelli. I do have reservations about that as well. So I think ideally I would try and get a 3-4-3 with Kulusevski, but if he's out, I think you have to play 3-5-2, but that leaves its own problems.
What about, I'm just thinking a bit outside the box here, what about if Kulusevski is fit and still sticking with that 3-5-2 and maybe dropping one of Kulusevski or Kane into that midfield and maybe a more advanced position in the midfield where they can dictate the tempo of the game from the midfield and have Son and Kulu or Son and Kane up front?
Potentially, but I think if we had Kulusevski, I think he could have, if whoever they play at left back, to be honest, but especially if they play Zinchenko, as much as I think Zinchenko is a better player than Tierney, I think he's actually more gettable defensively, Zinchenko. I really believe Kulusevski would fancy himself in one-on-one situations against him, and I wouldn't want to take that away from him by playing him too centrally. I think I would want him to have a bit of a go at him if he's available. But if we're talking about Kane, potentially dropping Kane a bit deeper and playing Son and Kulusevski through the middle, that could work because they both could be decent runners, especially if Kane can get the ball quickly to someone like Kulusevski. He can find Son in behind. That could be devastating in that kind of role. I guess it's about being flexible in that kind of scenario. But I would like to see Kulusevski in a bit more kind of wide areas. It's not only taking on Zinchenko, but he likes to link up with Doherty as well.
Yeah. No, absolutely spot on. And there's a lot of key matchups on this pitch we'll get into a bit later. But let's look at the form of these two teams. Arsenal, the way they're coming into it, I mean, their form, not just generally throughout the season, but away from home has been what I've been most impressed with them this season. I mean, they're just kind of just swatting teams away, no matter who they play. I know they just drew with Newcastle at the Emirates, but away from home, I mean, what the hell? How are they doing this week in, week out?
Because they're energetic, they get in your face, they're young, they're intense, they start games with a purpose. How many times have they scored this season inside the first 5-10 minutes? Like countless amount of times.
It's like every game, it seems.
It's not even just the beginning of the game, it's the beginning of each half as well. And because they're so confident, when you got players like Saka and Martinelli running in, attacking the spaces, and they're so extremely good in one-on-one situations as well, it's very difficult to deal with, to be honest, when especially it starts the games and the form they're in. And it's a confidence thing. They're full of confidence right now. Confidence and momentum are massive things in football if you can harness them and you can have that in your game. And Arsenal have that in abundance right now. They have that air of invincibility. Saka, when he's taking on someone, he's not second guessing himself. He's going for it. He's taking him on. He's getting shots off. He's getting crosses in the box. He's not thinking. Like at times, Saka, when he's not confident, he'll get the ball and he'll second guess it. He'll think about having a go and he'll just run back and pass it back and try and find the space. But the form he's in, he doesn't care who he's facing right now. He's taking them on. He's having a go at them. And they're reaping the benefits of that right now. And especially away from home, most teams, even though they know they're facing an Arsenal, when you're playing at home, there's always that added pressure to get forward a bit, to attack a bit more, to leave those spaces, to throw a bit of caution to the wind when you're playing at home. And that is absolutely ripe for Arsenal. If you leave spaces for them, they will exploit. They've got people like Xhaka and Odegaard paying very smart passes into the likes of Martinelli and Saka as well, into the spaces. So you've got the combination of this very clever technical passes into very quick, good dribbling forwards, and it's at the moment very hard to deal with for a lot of teams right now. They're getting overwhelmed, coupled with the fact that you've got good passes now in the wing-back situation with White and Zinchenko, very clever players, and then you've got Saliba and Gabriel, who are very quick and strong centre-backs, pressing very hard up the pitch. So it's very difficult for teams to scout as well. And then you've got throwing Thomas Partey in there. So it's creating a formula right now which is devastating at the moment. I do think they're still very young, and if they do go through a period where they lose confidence, it'll be a different team. But right now, what it feels like is I feel like that defeat to us last season and then the subsequent kind of capitulation they had against Newcastle, I think they've taken that into the season, and they think they got ridiculed a lot over the summer for what happened, and obviously we got top four and everything, and it looked like we were going to push on, and it seems as though they've used that energy, that hurt that they felt last season, and it's like they've decided we're just going to be absolutely ruthless this season. We're going to take no prisoners, and that's what it's looking like at the moment.
Well, thanks for making me feel great about the North London
Well, we've got to know.
derby.
You got to know your enemy. You got to know what you're going up against.
No, I'm joking. I think you're absolutely spot on, to be honest. Absolutely spot on. You know, when you're taking rivalries aside and you look at what Arsenal have achieved so far this season, it's incredible, to be honest. It really is, as opposed to where they were last season, fighting for top four. They're a genuine contender for the title this year, and they're 5 points clear of Man City, which is incredible. But, you know, like you say, if they do get their confidence knocked, then we can beat them, and maybe they don't go and beat Man United next week. You know, the season has a different outlook on it, and I, for one, are very worried coming into this game. I really am.
I think you'd be a fool not to be worried.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. But on the flip side, like you say, we usually do well against these kind of teams, and we usually do well against this kind of philosophy of football. When you look back at the two games last year, Man City and Liverpool at Anfield, both away from home, we played really well in those games, and definitely should have won that Liverpool game and deservedly won that Man City game. So look, it's going to be an interesting matchup, and I'm just hoping that we don't concede early, because I think that's going to be a massive part of our downfall if we do concede early, because then it's gonna give them a lot more confidence, and once they're playing with confidence, it's really hard to stop them. And if we can just keep it tight for those opening 20 minutes, half an hour, get to half time at 0-0, get to half time, even 1-0 down or 1-0 up, whatever. If it's just one goal in it, I've actually got hope for that second half, and I think we can take the game if that is the case.
Yeah, I think the benefits to that is, despite the fact that we've gone behind so much, what we have shown is good character, ability late in the game to find energy to get to either get late goals or at least put pressure on late on, and that's been a positive. And we've still shown our fitness. I think it's important. Yeah, it's super important not to give them that confidence early doors like they've been finding so often this season. I think if we can shut them out in the first 20 minutes or first half an hour, that'll be super important. But what I would also like to see is I think it's very important early doors as well for us to give them something to think about. I want to see an early chance or two, or a few crunching challenges early on in this derby, because all of a sudden I want them to know they're in for a game. Because right now they're flying, they're coming into this probably as much as they're going to obviously respect us. I really believe that they're coming into this wanting revenge for last season, probably a bit of arrogance because of how well they're doing this season. And they're going to, like last season, right, they only needed a draw, and there was a debate whether are they going to come into this game and just try and shut up shop and go for a draw, or are they going to be like kind of, not naive, but are they going to kind of feel like, look, we're going to win this game, we're going to play our way, we're going to come flying out the traps. And we were kind of debating what they were going to do. And I said, Arteta he has so much belief in his way of playing. He's going to come flying out the traps, and he's going to try and win the game. But this season, there's not even a debate. We know what they're going to do. They're going to come absolutely flying at us. They're going to try and kill us. And why wouldn't you, the way they're playing? But we have to use that, and we have to counterpunch them. We can't just be defending deep the whole time. We need to show them that when we get the ball, we can hurt them as much as they can hurt us, and that's very, very important for me to be doing that in this game. Because if we're just defending all the time and just trying to get a few counters if and when, then it's going to be a very difficult game. It's only going to be a matter of time before they get that goal. We need to show that when they do get close to us, or we do win the ball, we're attacking intently, fast ball movements, progressing and getting in behind and making sure we're finding those bits of quality. Because otherwise, Arsenal, I'm going to give them too much encouragement, and we need to let them know they're in a game.
Yeah, exactly. And if we don't, this game could easily bypass us by the 20th minute mark. We could be 3-0 down and game over pretty much. And we need to stop that from happening from the get-go. We need to be on it from minute one. And it's something that we've been guilty of not doing a lot of times this season, especially in the last couple of months or so. So we need to start like animals. We need to be on the pitch. We need to be aggressive. We need to just be in their faces, really. Just stand up to them. They're top of the league. We want to spoil what they're trying to do this season. We got our own ambitions as well. So we really need to take the fight to them. When you're looking at this game, this is probably the first game at Tottenham that in the last 10 years that I haven't been confident of beating them in. And you're looking at the form of the head-to-head going into it, Spurs usually always win at home. Arsenal always usually win at the Emirates. But it's like a different feeling about it this time, isn't it? Just because of how good Arsenal have been.
There is, only because of Spurs' relative lack of form and Arsenal being so imperious, whether it be away from home or just the run they're on. Obviously, we go into this as underdogs. You have to.
For the first time in a long time.
Yeah, and just given, you have to respect the record Arsenal have this season. I think it's their 17 games, 15 wins, 14 wins, 2 draws and a defeat. You have to respect that. That's not luck. That's not because they've played good opposition or whatever. That's just because they're a solid, consistent team. And right now, I'm not saying we're rubbish, but we're not as good as them, or we've them been this season. So naturally, we're going to have to be underdogs. But it's still going to take a very big performance for Arsenal to come here and win. I still believe that we're going to show up. But I think there's a lot of reasons and motivations going to this game. First of all, in the North London derby. But second of all, you got all those sub stories. Harry Kane going for to be the top goal scorer for Spurs of all time. He's going to be, in my opinion, super on in this game. He's going to be so motivated to try and break that record and make sure Spurs get the win. You've got a lot of, you've got Arsenal trying to get their revenge on Spurs. You've got Spurs for the first time in 10 games finally getting the first goal in a game, and maybe they found the right formula. There's a lot of different things going into it. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But yeah, it's the first time, I can't remember the last time we've gone into a home game against Arsenal underdogs like this. But I think that might suit us in a way anyway.
Yeah, it could suit us. It could suit us, the underdog thing, but it hasn't suited us for the last 10 years because we've been the favourites going into this game and we've duly delivered, haven't we? And it's usually what happens. Look, everyone says form goes out the window for derbies, but I don't think that's the case for the North London derby. It's usually whoever's at home wins the game, isn't it?
That's usually how it is, yeah.
And I think that saying, form goes out of the window when derbies come around, I don't actually think that's relevant to the North London derby, to be fair. But it's like, cast your mind back to the end of last season. We're the ones that pipped Arsenal to 4th. How the hell did we let this happen? Arsenal to get as good as they got, and we just haven't kicked on. If anything, we've regressed a little bit from what we were showing in the second half of last season. We all thought coming into this, Champions League is the be all and end all. It will give us a chance to really kick on, get those signings in. Yeah, we did get a few signings in, and we've been unlucky in terms of injuries and stuff like that, which definitely you've got to take into account. But Arsenal have Gabriel Jesus out injured, who was so pivotal to them when he's been fit. He goes out and it doesn't look like they miss him whatsoever. How have we let it get to this stage? Like, why the hell are we the ones in the Champions League and they're the ones making £70 million bid for players like Mudryk, who are, kind of unknown, really?
I think it's the consequence of better planning. That's the reality. They've planned better than us. We went into the summer thinking we're going to be the ones to push on. If anything, hopefully, if anyone was going to make a title challenge out of us and Arsenal, it was going to be Spurs. That was going to be the hope. Conte in his second season, all these kind of things. But when you think of it in a different way, Arteta's been there 3 times as long. For 3 times as long as Conte's been there. Conte's been there a year, just over a year now. Arteta's now entering, I think in February 2019, Or December 2019 he took over. We're now in 2023. So he's going to be entering his 4th year at Arsenal. He's had time to bed in his ideas. He's got rid of all the players in the squad who aren't up to what he wants, and he's now got a squad of players who are fully behind him and fully believe in his ideas and a team he can control. In the summer, if you ask Spurs fans what the biggest positions we needed, as much as we did need a Richarlison, we did need a Basuma, and they were vital positions, and we did need a Perisic, who's done well for us. The biggest positions we needed to really target in the summer were 2 centre-back options and a right wing-back. Those were the number one. Those were the main things that we needed to improve to take this team to the next level. And the reality is we got a right back from the Championship who Conte doesn't fancy, and we got a centre-back on loan till the end of the season who's good but isn't quite yet potentially that player who's going to take the defence to the next level. And what Arsenal did in the summer, what were the 3 biggest things they said in the summer, Arsenal, that they needed to take their team to the next level? They said they needed a striker, they said they needed a left back, and they needed a centre back. And what did they get? Jesus, Zinchenko, and they brought Saliba back. So they targeted and planned very strategically exactly what they needed, whereas Spurs maybe did make signings, but they didn't strategically pinpoint the exact areas this team needed upgrading and pinpoint with precision and go out and get them in the summer to the required standard. And that is why, and then obviously you add in the fact that we've got now Champions League 2 games a week, a few injuries, so you couple those things with the fact that we're still relying on players that are not up to standard, and we're relying on players, and we're playing more games, so we have to run for more games, not just 1 game a week like last season. It's led to a bit of a decline, whereas Arsenal, because they're in Europa League, they can afford to rest some players and in that competition, and they can just go and concentrate pretty much on their Premier League week on week with a better team now than they did have last season, first team anyway, and they're reaping the benefits of that massively.
It says it all, doesn't it? I mean, their key areas were left back and striker. They went and got Premier League winners in Zinchenko and Gabriel Jesus, quality players, right? Starters. We needed a right back and a centre back. We got a stopgap loan in Longley with no option at the end of it, and we got Jed Spence, who the manager won't use.
And we got no competition for Eric Dyer, which was another one where we were linked with a lot of it was a rumour last summer that we did also want another centre back, either to compete with Dyer or to upgrade on Dyer. We didn't get any centre back, so we've pretty much been relying on Dyer for the whole season, and he's obviously getting a lot of stick. I've always been one to defend Dyer and say I don't think he's as bad as people say he is, but we should look, when you're relying on him week in week out as if he's your main defender, like
he should be a squad player. He's a squad player at best.
We're treating him like he's like a Varane or like or like a Ruben Diaz. You know what I mean? When reality is he should be like Rob Holding. They're like, you know what I mean? He should be like Maguire. He should be someone who can step in when you need him, but he shouldn't be someone who like, and he can probably do a job, but he's not someone who we should be relying on every single game to be our main centre back. And at the moment, that's what's leading to Arsenal's ascendancy and Tottenham right now still faltering, because right now we have the same problems as we did when Conte first got appointed. We have exactly the same problems. They haven't been addressed. As much as, you know, you can say, well, we did spend money and all this kind of stuff. We did make signings.
It's the same problems when Nuno got appointed, to be fair.
But it doesn't
when Jose got appointed too.
Like, it doesn't matter how much you spend if you're not going to spend on the areas that we need most improving.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. I've said it before. Like, how I can't expect Conte to turn this set of defenders that we have into a defence which is title challenging. He might be able to scrape a top four with his defence. Even that, by the way, is looking like far away. But by the by, he got top 4 last season with this defence. It's not beyond the realms of possibility he could scrape a top 4 with this defence right now. But if we want this team to go to the next level, which it needed to at the end of last season, these things need addressing urgently. And at the moment, that it's holding us back, and that's what's leading to us not being able to keep up with Arsenal at the moment.
That's the problem. They actually have ambition from boardroom down.
It's a plan. It's not even ambition. Well, it's part of it. But
of course, it's ambition. We have ambition just about to get into the top 4. They don't care about furthering it past that. As long as they get their Champions League money and finish in the top 4, they're completely happy with that, and they think that's completely fine. And unfortunately, that is as far as we're ever going to go, in my opinion, under Daniel Levy in the hierarchy. But let's not get into that debate.
I just think it's better planning. I don't even think, because I don't think Arsenal had ambitions before the season to win the league. I really don't. I think this is something that has just happened. They're ahead of schedule. I don't think at the beginning of the season they said, look, we're going to go for a title. I think it's something that they're way ahead of schedule, but it's a consequence of better planning. They've had a plan in place for many years, a strategy, and it's worked really well for them because they know exactly what they're doing. And this goes back to what we've been saying for a few weeks now. What is the plan at Tottenham? Do we have a strategic plan about what direction we're going? Because are we going to back Conte? If we are going to back Conte, then we have to sign players right now who are going to fit into a system. If we're not going to back him, or we're going to give him tools which are inadequate for how he wants to play, then what's the point? I don't know what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. Let's look at the predicted lineup for Arsenal for this weekend. Gabriel Jesus and Reece Nelson out injured. Ramsdale in goal, Ben White right back, Saliba, Gabriel centre back, Zinchenko left back, Xhaka Partey in the middle with Odegaard, Martinelli and Saka on the wings with Nketiah up front. Starting off with Nketiah, I mean, I think that's a massive plus for us, them having Nketiah there instead of Gabriel Jesus. I think Gabriel Jesus would cause us no ends of problems. The way he drops deep and knits all the play together, and he's so hard to get the ball off with his tricky feet as well. But there are so many issues there on the pitch for us. I mean, Saka up against Perisic, Martinelli up against Matt Doherty really worries me. Really worries me. And Odegaard as well, drawing Dyer out of that centre-back position also really worries me. Odegaard has been one of the best, if not, in that position, he's probably been the best player this year. I think he's been better than De Bruyne this season.
Yeah, he's been fantastic. He's just got Player of the Month. It's just been announced by the Premier League for December. He's been phenomenal. There are tactically, either for whatever formation we play, I see big issues. If we go with 3-4-3, which I'm expecting, one benefit is that you could get Son and Kulusevski and Kane more involved, but the drawback is in the 3-4-3 is Odegaard is going to get a lot of space in behind Højbjerg and probably Basuma or hopefully Bentancur. Let's assume it's Basuma, which is most likely at this moment in time. Odegaard's going to get so much space. If not Odegaard, then if we decide to either drop a midfielder deep or draw a centre back out, you've got probably Xhaka finding a lot of space. Which is a big problem. You've got, as you say, if we play Matt Doherty at right wing back, which I'm assuming we are because he's our first choice at the moment, then Martinelli is going to absolutely be licking his lips at that potential prospect, and the same with Saka up against Perisic. At least with Martinelli, if he does beat Doherty, you do have Romero backing him up. With Longley, he's still again not the quickest, and he's aggressive, but he's not like overly aggressive. And Saka's definitely going to fancy his chances on that side. I think he got a lot of joy against Perisic and Longley back at the Emirates as well.
I actually might. If it was up to me, side with Davis over Longley for this game, because I just feel like in his one-on-one defending, Davis is a better defender than Clement Longley. I think as a player, I think Longley is a better player than Ben Davis, and I prefer him as a player in terms of bringing out the back and his ball-playing ability. But as an out-and-out defender, which we're going to need on the weekend, I think Ben Davis might be the one.
I'm not sure. I think when it comes to, I think Davis is probably slightly quicker than Longley. I don't think there's much in it when it comes to pace. I think strength-wise, Longley is better. I think positioning-wise, Longley's pretty better. I do think passing-wise, he's better as well. What Davis is better at is he's more comfortable coming out into the wide areas, and he's more comfortable defending one-on-one than Longley is, because Longley likes
he's a bit more combative as well than Longley.
I don't know. I think Longley might be more combative.
Do you think
Davis.
so?
Yeah.
I disagree with that, because I feel like a lot of times in the one-on-one situations where you're asking Longley to be super aggressive up against his attacker, I feel like he's found wanting a lot of times.
I think Longley's more aggressive. What Longley's actually better at than Davis, he's a bit more proactive in his defending. He does it more than Davis. He gets in front of his man a bit more. He likes to get closer to his man. Davis is a bit more reactive when it comes to defending, in my opinion. That's how I see it. So it's a difficult one. It's a very difficult one. Which one to go with, to be honest? Either one. I think Saka's going to be licking his lips.
Absolutely.
To be honest, on that side. When it comes to Perisic, at least he's a bit more. Obviously, he's got that experience there, and hopefully he gives Saka something to think about going the other way. Whereas I don't think Doherty, as much as I think Doherty's good going forward, he's not a great dribbler. He's not good at crossing. He doesn't have pace really. So when it comes to giving Arsenal something to think about going the other way, I don't think they're going to be too bothered about Matt Doherty. The only thing you've got to stop with Matt Doherty is clever touches in and around the penalty area and getting at the back post. If you stop that, you pretty much stop his threat. You can't. He's not really going to be taking people on and driving into the space. At least Perisic, on that side, Saka has to track back Perisic. You can't allow Perisic to get a cross in, right? He can't allow Perisic to get into one-on-one situations with Ben White. He needs to track back. Martinelli might half cheat and feel like, look, I don't really have to track back. I can kind of half track back Doherty, but you know what? If he has the ball and then he loses it, I'm going to be in all this space. I don't have to really go back all the way. That's why I'm worried about Matt Doherty on that side, and also Martinelli. If he gets in front of Doherty, he's going to definitely fancy his chances in taking him on.
Would you consider, hear me out here, because it's probably a bit crazy to some people what I'm about to say, in terms of starting Sessegnon on the left and Emerson on the right, just for their pace and just for the pace, really. I mean, we've seen it in the past, last season against Liverpool, where we played Sessegnon and Emerson, and both had a really good game.
I would want Perisic in there, because I first of all from set pieces, and I do think as much as he's a bit older and they might fancy their chances against him in defensive situations, I think we need him because he offers that attacking threat, which we're not going to have without him. And we need, in my opinion, we have to ask questions of Arsenal. We need to get them thinking the other way. And I don't think Emerson and Sessegnon together. I would consider Emerson and Perisic, to be honest. I would seriously consider that. But I would, or even Sessegnon and Perisic. But I think we need Perisic in that team. I think there are cons to it having him in the team, but I think the pros, in my opinion, outweigh the cons of having Perisic.
Because we played. Those wing backs we actually played at Man City as well, didn't we? Sessegnon played at Man City.
We played Emerson and Sessegnon at Man City, yeah.
I mean, they both had stellar games in both those games, and it's not like they diminished our creative ability in those games, because we created a lot of chances, especially in that Man City game.
In the Man City game, yeah, Kane had the game of his life. I mean, yeah, they had good games, but Sessegnon's been so out of form. I mean, I don't think I'd bring him in and trust him to put in a good performance right now, Ryan Sessegnon, in this kind of game. I do think Perisic for me is the way to go. Whether it be on the right or the left, I would start him.
In terms of the ones to watch, we've gone for Saka and Martinelli. I mean, we've given you why they're going to worry us this weekend. But 6 goals, 6 assists for Saka in 17 games, with Martinelli 7 goals and 2 assists. I mean, both of them are just rapid, aren't they? And we're going to have such a torrid time dealing with them. And like you say, for all the reasons that we've just said in terms of an ageing wing-backs against fresh, young wing-backs, it's going to be difficult, very difficult.
Yes, we're going to have to be smart about it. It's going to be, I think, if we played a 3-5-2, you could maybe even contain the wingers a bit more, just because you got potential defensive midfielders coming over and helping. I just feel like we will lack width massively when we're going forward. We won't be able to attack the wide areas, which is where Arsenal leave a lot of space. But Martinelli and Saka have been absolutely phenomenal this season. Especially, what's really impressed me is obviously they're scoring goals, but it's their ability to consistently take players on.
It's relentless, isn't it?
And in one-on-one situations and beat them relentlessly. Like, you think, because you've got players, for example, like Son. I love Son. I think Son's a world-class player, but when it comes to dribbling in one-on-one situations, like he is nowhere near as relentless and as consistently able to beat his man as I've seen Saka and Martinelli are. It's like they're combining their strength and pace and body movement to be able to get in situations like they're completing dribbles 3-4 times a game, which might not sound like a lot, but it is a lot. It's really, really impressive. It's very, very hard to do, especially in this day and age where defenders are getting stronger and they're getting quicker. Yet Martinelli and Saka are so good. And what Martinelli showed for me is, like, if you give him the ball to feet, he's really strong in his one-on-one dribbling. But as well, if you push high, and you try and get close to him so he's not getting the ball, he can spin in behind you, run in behind, like he did for that 4th goal against Brighton. They tried to do something different, push higher up, and then he just spun in behind and attack the space, and he can do that as well. That's why I feel like Son, for me, could do better. I feel like, obviously, you're not better in attacking the space. I think he's one of the best attackers in the league at that, if not the best, at running in behind and attacking the space. But he's not as good with ball to feet, running at players like Martinelli and Saka, and that's the difference there. As much as I think Son is a much better finisher than both of them, but they're just so hard to deal with. Both of those players, they can go on the. They're also quite two-footed. They can go on the inside or the outside as well, and it's going to take a lot to stop them. And it's going to take a good tactical decision from Conte to stop them, but doesn't mean to say they're unstoppable.
No, of course they're not.
And if we get it right, we can.
Newcastle did a job on them at the Emirates and stifled them. They hardly had a shot on goal, never mind a goal. And it's what we got to do. And a player that we haven't mentioned today, Nkuti Romero, is going to be so important, if not maybe probably our most important player on the pitch on Sunday when it comes to it, 4:30 kickoff. And another player is Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, who hasn't really come back from the World Cup in the best way. His form isn't the greatest, and I think he scored against Brentford, but I think his performances since coming back from the World Cup haven't been the greatest, and we need Højbjerg back to his best if we're going to get anything out of this game. And those two players, because not only do they help out in defence, but they help out going forward as well, and we need both of those players to have games of their lives. And Romero, I've been really happy with Romero since he's come back into the side, coming back from the World Cup. I think he's come back in a really good way and he's performing really well. And it's no coincidence that since him coming back has coincided with our first 2 clean sheets in a long time. So I think these two players are going to have games of their lives, aren't they? Yeah,
Romero's going to be absolutely massive in this game, no doubt about it. It's going to be so important being on that front foot. And I think when it was I think he'd prefer to play against a striker like Nketiah than he would against someone like Jesus, who's going to drop deep. He's going to take him on. He's going to try to dribble around him, and he's strong and quick. Whereas Nketiah, that's not his strengths. He likes to be running in behind. He likes to trying to get on the end of crosses and things like that. And I think Romero, and I think all 3 of our defenders, to be honest, would much rather face a striker like Nketiah, who's more in the penalty area than outside the penalty area.
Especially
like
Eric Dyer. Man,
yeah,
Eric Dyer would just lose his shit with Gabriel Jesus running around like a madman. At least Nketiah, he's a fox in the box. He's a poacher. You know where he's going to be, and I think Dyer can actually stifle Nketiah, but I don't think he could for Gabriel Jesus.
Yeah, I think Jesus would have given our defence a lot of problems. So it is a benefit that Nketiah's there, but doesn't mean he's not without threat. That's for sure.
Of course. Yeah, he's a great finisher, Nketiah. He really is.
Yeah, he's
a better finisher than Jesus, in my opinion.
Probably, if you get to those positions, he's probably a bit more clinical than Jesus. I have to agree with that. I just don't think his all-round play is as strong as someone like Jesus. But it's Romero's his proactiveness is gonna be very, very vital in this game. And I don't think he's still yet to play. Is he yet to play a North London derby? Did he play
at the Emirates? I think.
The Emirates. Yeah, he hasn't played at home yet in the North London derby.
No, he's only been here for that one game, and he obviously pulled out just before the game, didn't he?
Yeah. So look, it's going to be very vital that he's on top of his game. Højbjerg, it's going to be a difficult one for him because obviously he's if he's next to Bentancur, he's usually a better player. Højbjerg. For some reason, Basuma hasn't quite got to grips with the role yet, and it's kind of, I feel like maybe it's hindered the partnership when they're together. Maybe Højbjerg feels like he has to do, I don't know what it is, but Basuma just, when he's played in a double pivot, hasn't quite got to grips with the positioning or also on the ball how to drive forward. He's kind of lacking in a lot of these things. He keeps getting caught out by opposition midfielders, get caught the wrong side a lot of the time. And it's peculiar because you associate Bissouma with someone with big engine, someone who can cover a lot of ground, someone who's very strong, fast as well. And the fact that he hasn't been able to nail down that pivot after 6 months is a bit... I can't put my finger on why, but hopefully Bentancur is back. Would you consider Ollie Skip for this game if
No,
Bentancur
Pape Matar for me.
You think you'd consider Sarr?
100%. I think Sarr...
Big game, though.
I know it's a massive game, but I think Sarr has shown more coming on against Villa, coming on in the Crystal Palace game and starting that Portsmouth game, getting man of the match. He's shown a lot more just in those 3 games than Bissouma has, in my opinion, all season. And Skip is not in a good way at the moment. He's not playing well. So I think for me, I would actually start... If Bentancur's not fit, I go for Højbjerg and Sarr.
Interesting. You wouldn't go for Bissouma?
No, I don't. We can't risk Bissouma's madness in this game. He gives away a big chance every single game. Pretty much.
But is it not more of a risk playing a young player who's making his second start in a Premier League?
No, because I think that Sarr has shown... Look, he's only shown it in bite-sized sample pieces. Look, it's a risk. Obviously, it's a risk.
I think it's more of a risk, I would have to say. I'd have to. You can't say he's less a risk when he's made 1 Premier League... Well, not,
I understand that. I understand that, but Bissouma just hasn't shown anything in a midfield 2. He just if it's a midfield 3, I'm happy for Bissouma to play. But in a midfield 2, Bissouma has not shown anything to tell me that he should be starting in this game. When Sarr, yes, he's only started 1 game, but he's actually shown attributes that tells me that he's getting more ready than Bissouma.
Yeah, I guess if you're taking those, but you're taking very small sample sizes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you got the bigger sample size on Bissouma to show us that he's not ready.
Yeah, but would I rather take the gamble that he gets up to speed in this kind of game, knowing the kind of quality Bissouma can bring, or take the gamble that Sarr is going to step up in a young player like Sarr will step up in a very big game like this? And imagine if he gets completely, crucified, how much how much that could affect him. Like I wouldn't want to risk. Putting him under the gun like that. I don't know.
In my opinion, you got to play the players that are playing well at the moment. Bissouma ain't playing well at the moment. Yes, Sarr hasn't played too much, but he is playing well, and he looks at home in games in the Premier League so far. Coming on against Villa, like I said, coming on against Crystal Palace, starting against Portsmouth in the FA Cup, albeit League One opposition. I think that that you got to take the risk. In my opinion, I think it's a risk playing both of them. And I think that when Bissouma's played, especially in that middle 2, in a middle 3, I'm fine with Bissouma, but when it's in a middle 2, he has not shown enough, and he gives away big chances every game. And if you give away chances like that to Arsenal, you're going to concede. That's just the facts of the matter. And he just doesn't fill me with any sort of confidence playing, and Sarr has filled me with confidence whenever I've seen him play.
Yeah, but he's come on. We know we're 3-0 up against Villa when we're 3-0 up against Palace when he comes on. Was it 2-0 when he came on?
Yeah.
We're 2-0 up against Palace when he comes on. I know against Villa we're already losing, but he only played like 5 minutes. And against Portsmouth, yeah, he had a good game, but it's a League One side.
But you
like
can't...
this is like you're asking him to play at 20 years of age for his first start in a Premier League game to start against Arsenal, and expecting him to put in a performance where we need a result. And I don't know if that's fair to put him in that position.
Look, I get what you're saying, but I agree with you in some sense, but that's just the situation we're in at the moment. And I just don't think Bissouma's good enough at the moment. We can't just keep going on what he's shown at Brighton. We need to see what he's shown in a Spurs shirt, and he hasn't shown anywhere near enough in a Spurs shirt to make me say, here, go and start that North London derby in the middle 2, because he hasn't looked good enough in the middle 2.
I'd rather bank on him learning from... Look, things change. You go through periods where you're not playing well, and then it finally starts to click. And I would I would bank, if I was a betting man, I would bank on Basuma learning from his mistakes more than I would bank on Sarr having his first Premier League start against Arsenal, in my opinion.
You never know what can happen in these kind of games, especially, you know, Danny Rose got given his debut against Arsenal. I know he got taken off at half time, but he scores that banger in the first few minutes, and we go on to beat Arsenal for the first time we've beaten them in a very long time. And I'm sure it's happened before. I mean, I think Sandro, didn't he make his first game in the North London derby as well? I know we lost 4-1, but he had a really good game. He was our best player that day. So, you know, you never know what can happen in these kind of games. And I'd prefer to go with the form players than the players that have the most experience.
Fair enough.
But that's our North London derby preview. We're going to get into BetMate in a second. But before we do, it's score predictions time.
Well, look, a lot of it depends on who's fit, who's available, who's going to be starting. I do believe if Kulusevski and Bentancur are both fit, I believe the chances of us getting a result in really, really improving this game. And I think that in the way we play is set up to take advantage of the weaknesses of Arsenal. But we have to be on our game. We have to be our 100% from minute one, and we have to be our very best to get anything from this game. Having said that, I'm going to go with a 2-1 win for Spurs.
You know what? I've been thinking about this all week. What's the score going to be? What's the score going to be? This is going to be 3-2. This game is going to be 3-2. I'm just not sure who it's going to be 3-2 to. But, you know, I have to side with Spurs, don't I? So I'm going to go 3-2 to Spurs. I think we might go down early. And I think if we just keep it into a one goal margin going into half time, I think that we can turn it around, and I think we can do something. So I'm going to go 3-2 to Spurs with the fans behind us. It's going to be an intense atmosphere. We saw how they folded under the intense atmosphere last year.
Do you think?
So I'm hoping for the same.
Do you see the atmosphere being the same as last season on Sunday?
Up until a point, yeah, up until a point. I think if we start losing and we go 2-0 down or something early, it could turn quite toxic. But I think no matter what, the Spurs fans always show up at home to Arsenal.
I know, but do you see it like, you know, the scenes before the game last season, we were lining the streets with the flares.
It'll be the same.
You reckon it'll be the same on Sunday?
I think so, yeah.
I hope you're right. I've got a feeling it might not be. But
I think it will be.
I hope you're right.
From the noises I'm seeing around social media and stuff, I think it will be.
People are
I think it will
congregating.
Yeah.
Again, they're making plans.
Yeah,
okay,
making
good.
plans.
Okay, good.
The flares are out.
I was just thinking because, you know, there's not as much riding on the game on Sunday as there was last season. Like last season was it was a Thursday night. It was a big occasion. We knew it was like do or die. There was so much riding on that game, and I just feel like there's a different feeling this season.
But you know what it is. You know what it is.
I'm not saying I'm wrong. I don't know.
You know what it is. It's like right now, it feels like I've gone back in time like 15 years. Like Arsenal fighting for league titles, Spurs not doing very well to what we should be doing. And back in those days, Spurs fans used to do it was no different. You know, we used to line the streets. We would want to do anything possible to stop them going on a title charge. And it's going to be no different this weekend. And I think it's going to have that similar vibe. And if we do beat them and somehow go on and beat Man City next weekend, you know, the season's going to have a different outlook on it. So look, I'm going 3-2. Sim's going 2-1. I want to know your score predictions in the comment section below. But let's get on to BetMate now, the brilliant gaming app where it's fantasy league and everyone goes head to head in a big league. It's a £750 guaranteed pot for the North London derby this weekend. And if you're a new user, type in the code WATTV20 for free. £20 for you to play with. It is only £5 to enter the North London derby pot, so you get to enter a few more games as well with that free 20 quid. But let's get into our teams and let's see how we go. Let's start off with you, Sim.
I've gone for Lloris in goal because I'm anticipating many saves. You get a point for each save you make, so I've got him in goal. I got the wing backs. I got Ben White and Ivan Perisic, both attacking really well this season. I'm hoping Perisic maybe with his set pieces could be very vital in this game. Midfield, I've gone for Kulusevski and Granit Xhaka. I think Kulusevski is going to be back in the team, and I believe he could play a big role in our attack. And obviously Granit Xhaka has got a lot of bite in the midfield, and he's playing well at the moment. And then up front, Harry Kane, captain, because I think he's guaranteed to score in this game, in my opinion. opinion, and Bukayo Saka, who's on great form at the moment, and he's going to fancy his chances of getting something.
Too many Arsenal players in that team.
I know.
Way too many Arsenal.
I don't feel right, to be fair.
Did you have a shower straight after making that team?
100%. I was doing it in the shower. Making my team.
Let's move on to my team, and I've got a very Tottenham-heavy team with Hugo Lloris in goal. Back two of Cuti Romero in Ivan Perisic. I think Romero is going to be so vital to this game, and I think he's going to be bang on it as well with his interceptions and blocks and tackles and everything that he does. Perisic can do something going the other way, in my opinion. In the midfield, I've gone for Højbjerg and Xhaka, which is going to be a key matchup in this game, where they're going to be like a bull in a china shop, both of them. And then up front, I've gone for Kane captain and Son vice captain. So a very Tottenham-heavy team. But I'm backing the boys this weekend. North London derby, you have to do it. So, yeah, that is our BetMate teams. Once again, the score predictions are 3-2, 2-1, both to Spurs. Let me know yours in the comment section below. But that is our match preview.